self-abandonment is a massive primal wound. But for me, on my journey for where I am today, it's more prevalent about how we self-abandon. So it goes much deeper than, there's some amazing people out there doing amazing work with self-love and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, it all ties in with self-love. But self-love, real self-love and real sort of care for yourself is deeper than just getting a beautiful bath with roses or whatever, and massages and things like that. It's more, for me, it's more to do like with our looking at our belief systems, looking at our programming that we've had since childhood, and really trying to sort of like flip and reverse that, because, and also like connecting, because I mean, I would say, I don't know what percentage, but a very high percentage of the population really don't know who they are, and they've never really experienced who they are, which I believe is love. Like we are, and if you want to call it God, universe, lots of different names, but for me it's love. Like we came from love, we are love, but then we're born and we have all this conditioning, and it's not just the conditioning from parents, it's society, it's world energy, collective energy. I mean, we only have to look at the things what have gone on in the last sort of couple of years, don't we? And how that's put massive majority of people into fear. So for me, that self-abandonment, just some small examples are like doing things that, firstly, not being mindful and just doing. And so it's taking that deep breath. It's really listening to your heart of like, is this going to like nourish me? Is it going to feed my soul? Is it going to bring joy? Is it going to make me happy? And taking that sort of deep breath before we make those decisions, because I have done it with obviously all my programming, but specifically in relationships and things, we tend to like go along with things, especially also as an empath, because as empathic people, we tend to not want to hurt people's feelings. We try to want to help them, support them, but we are self-abandoning. We're neglecting our own needs, and then we're no good for anybody else. If we keep doing that. And so I'm sure we've all done it where, we might be in a relationship and we might be just going along with things that actually aren't making us happy. They're not making us joyful, because also we may have fear of abandonment there from the relationship, where you might have fear of rejection, all that type of thing. So really for me, the big theme for me at the moment and what I'm learning and experiencing is to really listen and not abandon my own feelings and my own needs.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so important. And I was chatting to you in Messenger saying, we will go through these experiences, and no matter whether we're highly awakened, we could be, have been on our spiritual path for a long time. But we all still have these deep emotions that stir within us. And our body, is taxed at times because of, the life at which we lead. So it's all about listening to the mind and the body and really trusting, isn't it? And, and I appreciate you sharing that, because we need to be open with ourselves and open with others. And that's how we move forward, really, isn't it? So
yeah, and I mean, it can be bold and a brave move, but I can't explain the excitement and the feeling when you are true to yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
even when you have to actually say, you see, I love the power of no as well. Like, I've learned that sort of in the last 5 years or so, of like, it's the way you describe that to people. Thank you. This is how I'm feeling. So it's a no from me on this occasion. And there's no over explaining. There's no, it's just no. It's not something that I'm willing to participate in at this moment, or whatever the situation is. But people are so afraid to say no. But again, it's to those primal wounds. And it's all well and good talking about not abandoning yourself, but if you have had also trauma of abandonment as a young child, it's not an easy task. The actual trauma needs healing as well. And as I'm sure you're aware, and others may not be aware, but trauma can stay in the body for a long time. And it's literally on a cellular level. So there's deep work needed there to get that actual trauma out of the body. So, no amount of kind of mantras, affirmations, although very good, supported with other things, is going to relieve that trauma out of the body. It can be a number of things, but yes, psychotherapy, different types of psychotherapy is amazing. But in particular for me, body work. And as you was just saying, Andy, listening to your body. If you have had trauma and you are talking about that trauma, you will feel that in the body. I know that I have definitely felt my own trauma deep inside my stomach.
And
it gets trapped there. And then when it's unhealed, we have other things in the world mirroring our trauma, and we always think, that's the world's against us. Why am I facing this again? Why do I have to go through this trauma again? And it's not. It's a mirror. It's a mirror saying to you, you have this and you need it healing.
Definitely.
Everything is there to support us, I feel.
I think the shamans always used to say that health and healing is all about mind, body, spirit. It's the whole aspects of self. It isn't just the physical health; it's the mental health and obviously spirit, as we said, and the energetic body. How the energetic body is impacting on our physical body and our mindset as well. We need to focus on all of it as a whole to bring ourselves back into balance. Really,
Yes, yeah. And much of my work is, obviously I've got the Facebook group, Healing from Abandonment Trauma, which it's not, a psychotherapy or a counselling group or anything like that. It's literally supporting those people that have had those abandonment wounds, and just hints and tips really on my experience and my journey. And it's been really good because there's a whole host of people on there. Again, I bet in the world, the percentage of abandonment trauma is massive. But it's been a really lovely group, and it's my passion to sort of really just plant those seeds as well, just to help somebody get in the right direction for healing.
Definitely. So as you know, I love to ask people about their journey and story, and their soul path. So with regards to abandonment, it'd be interesting to touch on some of your story, your past, and even your process of healing in terms of how you've worked through some of those things. So I'd be interested to know where your wounds of abandonment may have started.
One of the major traumas for me was losing a parent at the age 11. Horrific trauma and wound as a child. to go through that. You know, you kind of feel abandoned by God, obviously by that parent. And for me, that was a massive imprint with, as what I was talking about, a big trauma and imprint within my body and within myself. You'd have to excuse my cat, sorry.
That's okay.
He's just come to say hello, and he's quite vocal at times. Hello.
That's okay.
So yeah, that kind of led me on my spiritual journey, really, because I couldn't believe that somebody could be there 1 minute and then suddenly they were gone, on top of the trauma that I was already facing. So it led me on the spiritual journey, really, just to discover and find out. I couldn't believe that we die and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, just seemed such a waste, and what is the point? So that kind of led me on my spiritual journey. And you know, I looked at a lot of the different religions, and none of that made sense to me. I was brought up myself as a Christian, not a devout Christian, but you know, in a school that kind of like taught religion, but from a Christian aspect. But yeah, and then it just led me on to reading other books and things, and just getting deeper and deeper into spirituality. And even today, I feel like the only truth is within self. You know, everything.
Yeah, that's very true.
Everything brings us back to self. Like every avenue brings us back to self. Yet we keep, you know, denying ourselves, and we keep again abandoning ourselves.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, and really, all the gifts were there all along.
Very true. It's all, you know, that's what I speak about in the soul pathway stuff. It's all about coming home to self, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the realization, I mean, over the past couple of years, I've learned lots of different therapies, like you have as well, you know. And you get to the point where, for me, it was like, I don't know what I know anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I don't know these subject areas, because that might come across as I'm completely ignorant. But it was just more like, you know, knowing that everything that we need to know is truly within ourselves, you know.
No, I think that's beautiful. Because the more, I could say a very similar statement. The more that I learn, the more I say I know nothing. And again, I do know things. I have experienced things, but it's like there's a vast, endless potential out there. Well, it's not out there. It's in here. Sorry. It's just a vast potential. Like, and so how can I know anything really?
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, do you find, like, with regards to our spiritual journey, and even when it comes to abandonment, because it's all going to circle back to this, but for me, it's like living life simply, just trying to be simple in the way that we live our lives. And then in the process of doing that, the abandonment isn't so deep within us, although it's very present. It's very much more a calm equilibrium, like a nice state.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think once we connect to that truth of who we are, in that silence and in that presence, you know, those feelings of who we really are, love, is there. It's ever present. Once we shut out the noise of our brain and our thoughts, and I'm not saying it's an easy task to do. It sounds easy, but it's not.
It's not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. But once we have that connection, that is the truth of who we are, and we can actually create and manifest anything once we're in that state.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like what you're saying, Andy. It's about simpleness, simple lifestyle. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to sit in presence and go inside.
No, I know. Can I ask you a few questions about, your trauma experience as well then? Because if we look at grief as a whole, and obviously this isn't a discussion about grief, but grief is in some ways traumatizing, awakening in some ways. We were speaking about this in a discussion before as well, where someone has been ill for a long time and you're able to deal with that grief in a much better way than something like a shock death. That's much more traumatizing. But more so when it comes to childhood and someone losing someone close to them, and in your situation, someone very close, as a mother, it's incredibly traumatizing because, we speak about it in hypnotherapy, the childhood trauma is so deep because it doesn't have the adult mind to process the emotions, the feeling, and the experience,
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, for me, it was it was within weeks. My mother became ill to dying. There was no, and again, as that child, my my father, who I love dearly, but obviously he's coping with the trauma of his wife being ill, and he's trying to shelter and protect the children, myself, my sister. And so where, I was in a position of, as a child, thinking everything was going to be fine. I never once thought, I'd never really experienced, I don't think, death at that age. And so all of a sudden, then she was gone. And it was like, it happened so fast that the brain just cannot process it. And so it brings in other mechanisms to survive. So for me, I even had this little story, this little like disassociation going on, that denial. I sort of said to myself, my mum's not dead. You have to laugh at the way the child's mind works, because I was like, she's moved to Australia, because Australia's like, as a child, the other side of it is a long, 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 long way away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in order for me to cope and not like collapse in, of shock or whatever, my brain kind of disassociated and went into sort of denial. And that was just like a coping mechanism. But of course, as time goes along, you know that that's not really real, and that person's not coming back. And the shock and the trauma is already there. It's instilled within those cells. And so,
it's an interesting age as well, isn't it? Because, let's say 4 or 5 years old, you're more unconscious to it, but at 11 years old, you're very much conscious as well, but you still can't process it,
No, and obviously other family members are suffering the same shock, the same not exactly the same. Everybody's processes it different, but it's still a shock, and it's still trauma for them. And I really, really passionately feel for people that have suffered any kind of trauma, but particularly in childhood. It took me a long time to recover, long time to heal, with lots and lots of different modalities. My hope is that more these days we're a bit more aware about trauma. And if you have got parents that are a little bit more aware and can be more supportive, fantastic. But there's also a lot of people that haven't got that support as well. So
yeah. And I think, like, not looking too much back at conditioning, but we look at we look at our parents' upbringing anyway,
Yes.
and you know, the age in which they lived, it was, you know, sweep things under the carpet a bit more.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays we're like, no, no, no. Let's face our emotions, let's process them and honor them. You know, it's okay to have these emotions, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And just following on, it's took me to some of the work that I do now, which is, oh, excuse me, which is I work as a vortex energy healer, and I'm also a quantum flow practitioner. So there's a mixture of energy work there, and with the quantum flow, there's a mixture of some body work, which I think is also really important to really try and shift that out of the body, those blocks. So
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's all our stories, I believe, are our gifts.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we can only really help people from the experiences we've had. And so, as much as, you know, I could look back and say that was a tragedy, which it was on one level, I can also bravely say that it was a gift. Now, of course, I wouldn't wish for anybody to die in my family, but it happened, and you have to grow and you have to evolve. Or the alternative is you stay stuck, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're not going to grow and evolve. So I do truly look back and see all the experiences in my life as a gift, because just allows me to be in service to others, which really makes my heart grow.
Yeah,
You know,
me too.
I think that's what we're
Me
all
too.
here for, to support each
It's
other.
interesting. I feel like with myself, I find my purpose is in my work, what I do, like supporting others, helping others.
Yes.
And if I'm not doing that, then there's something missing,
Yes.
you know, and it's that purpose to help and support others. But at the same time, and I think this is really important to touch on, at the same time, it's not abandoning yourself,
Yes.
you know, and that's what's really interesting, because we can get so, well, I've done it over the years. You get so passionate about your work and what you do. All of us do.
Yeah.
And we put our heart and our soul in it. And that's what we love to do.
Mm.
But that self-abandonment really does come into play,
Yeah.
where we actually neglect ourselves, neglect our own needs, and we need to take that time out.
Yes.
And we have those episodes of burnout or whatever it might be
Mm.
that says, right, Nicola, you need to stop for a moment.
Mm.
Andy, I've got to stop. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's all about balance again and harmony, isn't it? Because, you know, I mean, now have like I treat life as a ceremony, really. Like even just from, you know, making sure I've got the right amount of sleep, switching away from social media, etc. on a night. I've like treating life like a ceremony, and I'll be up, do some meditation work. You know, I was talking earlier. I've just been for a beautiful walk in nature. It's for me that's like the plug in. You know, like the plug into the
Definitely,
natural energy of the earth. Um,
definitely, definitely.
yeah, and I think it's just finding that balance in life, because I totally understand what you're saying, and I've been there too. And at times, I still have to remind myself to look after myself. It's an ongoing thing, I think.
Yeah,
Just it's got to be mindful and have that awareness, because, as you say, it can go into burnout and over rescuing people. Again, there's a big thing with empathic people. They don't like to see other people in pain, and therefore they want to be in there sort of like rescuing them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, you know, a newer understanding to me as well lately has been over the last few years, is that that's not like helping people, because as much as I've had to learn my lessons in life and experience everything I've experienced, for which now I'm grateful for because I've healed through, as do others. And life is up and down and different experiences. And if we shoot in there to try and, rescue somebody, we're actually doing an injustice, because they need to experience that.
Yeah, and that goes back to, coaching and therapy and holding people accountable for their own healing in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
It's, you have clients that are going through deep emotional things at times, so they might message you and say, I need your support right now. And you say, okay, let's work through it. And that's okay, but as long as they're holding that accountability and they're knowing that they can get through it,
Yes, I think it's about just holding that space, that being in presence. For me, when I'm working with clients with healing, because really everybody has the healing ability, as I'm sure you know that, Andy, but everybody has the healing abilities. And really, I class myself as a facilitator in that healing, because I'm exactly the same as everybody else. There's no hierarchy here. And for me, it's holding that space, it's holding that high vibration. And in order for somebody to feel loved and safe to express whatever they need to express, because in healing, particularly in energy healing, it can be very powerful, very beautiful, but very powerful. And layers can come up and things can be released. And that means releasing it out of the body. So at times, there will be people with tears and crying, and it's being present with that person, letting them know that you are there, that you love them unconditionally, and you're holding that space for them, and it's safe to cry, and that is a release.
Beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. I'd have sessions with clients, and initially they might come with the walls up, which is natural for so many people, and then in the next session they might break down in tears, and I said they're upset and overwhelmed and crying, and so I'm so sorry, and I'm like, it's all right. I so appreciate you sharing your emotions and feelings.
Yes.
Because that allows you to be vulnerable. And the truth is, you're accepted in whatever it is you're processing. Yeah. You're loved and accepted just as you are.
Yeah.
You don't need to change anything. Just got to love and accept yourself as you are.
Yeah. Yeah, because unfortunately there's another primal wound of shame. And again, it's like generational, isn't it? Like back, I guess, in like our parents' generation and further back, you didn't cry. You kind of like got on with it. You had that, especially in England where we've got that stiff upper lip sort of thing.
Yeah, we're good at that, aren't we? So
it's like, don't show your emotion. Come on, get on with the job, sort of thing. And it's caused a lot of shame. It's very sad, because as humans, we've chosen to come to this experience, and we've chosen to feel with all these senses that we've got, to feel everything, every experience, the highs and the lows and everything in between. We're lucky to be able to, we're gifted to be able to experience that. And feelings never last for long. Once we move through them, it's when we deny them and we stuff them down, and we create even more wounds in those cells, because we're stuffing them down when we're denying them, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And if we only felt them in that time,
Yeah.
much as we could possibly could, and felt safe to feel them, we can move through them.
See, that's an interesting point there, because I was having these discussions, quite a lot a couple of years ago when it comes to triggers and traumas and things like that. And we've had the discussion as well. Triggers are a beautiful thing, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Obviously, they bring up a lot of emotions, and a lot of people say let it flow and let it go. And however much I think that's good, it's really important to do. I think what we tend to do in those situations, or some people tend to do, is neglect those emotions somewhat.
Yes.
And it's like, no, allow yourself to feel it.
Yes.
Allow yourself to feel it, process it, and then let it go. Don't just let it come in and let it go, because you're not working with the emotion and shifting it, and healing it. At least that's what I feel.
Yeah, I mean, as adults, it's much easier to be more present and understanding to that. But as we talked about earlier, as a child, your body will do whatever it needs to do because it's feeling threatened. It'll do whatever it needs to do to survive. So in my case, it went into denial, which is a normal process of grief anyway. But your body has like mechanisms to keep you alive and to keep you safe. And so certain things that come in, like denial, like rejection, a whole host of survival mechanisms. And then, as we said, then as you get to an adult, particularly talking about triggers, people tend to either like really reject that or just deny it, just walk off, deny it. But it's that beautiful gift, and it will not go until it will just keep representing. And this is why we fall into patterns, even patterns in relationships. Again, with my own story, with not healing those abandonment wounds, I would find myself in relationships time and time again that would last maybe 2 years. And every single time it would end up where I felt abandoned, and I'd be in such a sort of like traumatized state, and I was looking at other people thinking, why can't you understand how painful this is to me? Other people were, well, it's a sad situation, but you'll be fine, you'll be fine. I was like devastated. It was just like mum dying all over again. And that was a pattern I was in because it wasn't healed from the body. It was still very traumatized within the body.
Yeah. It's sad though, isn't it? When it comes to, we could go on about this subject for a long time. I know we could. Yes. But when it comes to relationships, and we speak about spiritual relationships, let's say, soulmate and twin flame. We won't get into that discussion though.
That's another episode.
Open up a can of worms. But it's like these connections are beautiful as well.
Yes.
There's you're talking about living life in a sacred way.
Yes.
There's nothing more sacred about these beautiful relationships,
Yeah.
And that unconditional love that's shared between the two individuals.
Yes.
And it brings up beautiful emotions and feelings of love, ecstasy, incredible. But I always find in these relationships as well is, well, not always, because it all depends on how we've processed our emotions and wounds and things like that.
Yeah.
But with love comes abandonment, doesn't it? Right?
Yes.
Because love is the most powerful and most beautiful emotion. And yet to lose love is to have that fear of abandonment and to feel loss of everything,
Yes.
which is, I don't think anything can go so deep, really, as that. We spoke about grief, and grief is incredibly powerful, but the loss of love is quite traumatizing as well in its own way.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased that you talked about that, because even like in our spirituality, because we are nothing other than spiritual beings, and the wound of even separation from source coming into life, I mean, with this sort of like highest vibration loving energy, and then we've chosen to come into a human body where the density becomes heavier and heavier and heavier as we come into this human body. There's got to be some abandonment wounds straight away. Like, there must be.
Yeah, you said about that before.
Yeah,
very, very, very true. Yeah.
Because then we've come into the veil of amnesia and everything, and we forget who we are. But yeah, that wound must be there to start off with. So then anything on top of that, like traumatic as a child, really trigger that even deeper.
Yeah. And it's interesting in relationships anyway. Relationships bring up our wounds more than anything as well, anyway, which is natural. Because we feel so deeply for the person we love.
Yeah.
And if we feel deeply, then the myriad of emotions we will experience, so regardless of whether it's abandonment, fear, or rejection, or whatever it is, all of those emotions will be processed in the relationship.
Yeah. And I think it takes a very, I would say, best word that I could use, or words, is like spiritually mature, to meet that in a union, a true union. It takes spiritual maturity, because we've all done it, and there's lots of people still doing it, where in relationships, and yes, those triggers are always going to be there in a union, in any sort of relationship, but it's how we perceive them, and up to our spiritual matureness. I mean, are we unconsciously in that relationship, and are we acting from the wounds of that child, and denying and rejecting and arguing and fighting back?
It's interesting.
I would say it's like more of an unconscious, and again, it's not a judgment or a criticism, because it's all part of our growth and we've all been there. But I do feel it takes a certain amount of spiritual maturity to be, and I'm yet to experience this myself, but to be in a beautiful union relationship where there are still going to be those triggers. But if you've got that spiritual and emotional maturity and awareness to take responsibility for how you feel in that moment when you're triggered, and take responsibility of your own healing rather than projecting it back to that partner, for me,
very true,
spiritual maturity.
No, I was literally just discussing this with a friend last night.
Yeah.
And that was a private conversation, so I won't bring it in here right now. But the importance of spiritual community, maturity. But one thing I wanted to mention with regards to what you were saying, I was like, wow, I've got these thoughts that are going through my mind with regards to this, and not saying that people are immature in any way. So I'll just say that before I mention what I was going to share. But I find sometimes in these relationships as well, when there's a trigger that's being presented, let's say, the trigger isn't just a trigger of those emotions. It's actually that, taking them back to their own inner child.
Yeah.
So their own, again, not to project or anything like this, but that immaturity that comes through.
Yes.
Because they haven't been able to process those deep emotions within. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the inner child is for me, it's that residence left again in the body via wounds. And because, I mean, nobody is in this human life is going to be 100% healed, but some people have had beautiful and perhaps maybe more evolved souls, and they've had the fortune to be born into spiritually mature parents, and so they've had a good start. But even those people won't be perfect and will still have the inner children within them. But for those of us that haven't had that fortunate parenting and have experienced all sorts of different wounds, of course that inner child, that inner child wounds is always going to be there until it's healed. And it might not ever be, for me, the grief from the loss of a parent will never be healed in this lifetime, but it's accepted, and I've found a beautiful life for myself. But it's not like it's never happened. There's always going to be some form of sadness, but you just like to find joy in kind of like the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And going back to those things as well, like let's say spiritual maturity, or having those parents that have had that maturity and passed it to their children, let's say. I do believe, like, as we look at our spiritual journey and our soul pathway in a way, like you said at the beginning of this conversation, so many of us are wearing masks and are not presenting their true selves or our true selves, because we are trying to, show up to the world, show up to society, and fit in. So in some ways, I don't know. I think all of us have those child wounds, but like you said, it's with your sadness and stuff, that present sadness, it's like being content within ourselves. Just that contentment.
I think it's acceptance again, because it's not like, it's not like it's pushing it down and like ignoring it and saying, okay, it's there, but I'm just going to bypass and I'm just going to do everything else that makes me feel happy. It's acceptance that, my life is mostly joyful. I do find joy in most experiences, but there will be things in life, as there is for everybody, where I can connect to that sadness, either in others or, if somebody else is sharing their story or something sad, I can connect to that sadness because of my own sadness. But I'm not denying it. Again, I will just allow that feeling to come up and move through it. It doesn't have to crystallize within my body again and create, another wound or any trauma. But that again is spiritual maturity, because I'm aware of what's going on.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I'm not denying it. I think trauma is a really tricky one to talk about, because you could never prepare yourself for trauma, really. And you could never know how you're going to react, how anybody's going to react to trauma. And we are lucky that, we have got a beautiful body that will do these mechanisms for us to survive.
Yeah.
You know, because so denial and rejection, all those things are not bad things. They've come in to save us. But it's when we get stuck in certain patterns for a very long time, it can really hinder our joy and our happiness and everything else.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can completely agree with you and resonate. I think, you know, looking at my own experience, I'm quite deep and introspective. In fact, I'm very deep and introspective. I think people know that about me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go into these periods of isolation in some ways, but it's not that I'm really down. It's that I want this space for myself to have that peace and contentment. And then I can have those moments of high as well. But it's honoring those experiences as well, isn't it? And I think that's incredibly important, you know.
Yes. Well, again, you're listening to your needs and what you need, and I can certainly relate because I really enjoy that kind of like isolation or that like time for myself. I find that so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Because it's not mixing with any other energies, really. It's just your own. And sometimes we need that, like, to recharge.
Yeah. I think I try not to go off the subject at all, really, and get diverted at all. But I think so many of us, you know, when we're in those periods of isolation, it's knowing when to emerge, you know, as well, so that we don't become complete hermits. That I've become complete hermit so many times, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's good though, isn't it?
But I mean, yeah, I think what drives me, and I can't speak for you, Andy, but you know, most people doing this kind of work, what drives me back is that will and that purpose, like, you know, to help, to support, and to share my gifts with other people. That brings me back out of my isolation. Because as much as, you know, I really need that time for myself, I really need purpose, and I really need to share, and I really need to give.
Yeah.
To myself and to others.
I don't know about you, but I can get incredibly passionate when I realize I can support somebody. Yes. And I find that sometimes that can be a little bit overbearing. And I'm starting to notice that within myself. But it's like taking that step back as well and thinking, okay, I've got to not overshare too much. But this stuff's amazing. This stuff's amazing. You've got to know about this stuff, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, if most people could be that passionate also about themselves.
Yeah.
That passionate and that joyful, because you were laughing then and you were like really joyful sharing that. Like, if you can do that for yourself as well, which, you know, there's all that society stuff of like, people would say, well, that's selfish, that's self-indulgent, that's, you know, all those bullshit labels that
I agree
use. And it's not, because there has to be that balance and that harmony again, because if you are not loving to yourself, you're a hypocrite trying to, you know, help
other
people to do that. So and again, this is where the not abandoning yourself comes back in. It's having that passion as much as you have for other people, for yourself, and it's the balance, self and others.
I think self-love is an interesting thing. Very, very interesting. I've spoken about self-love in so many different ways over the years, you know. And reflecting upon it, let's say over the last year or so,
Yeah.
again, we come back to the understanding of we don't really know
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I think, because I'm very deep in my thoughts, I think, I'm not sure I know exactly what self-love is. Do you
I
know what I
think
mean?
I agree
It's
with you. I agree with you in the fact that I wouldn't actually want to really label it. Do you know what I think it is?
Mhm.
I just think it is that, again, it's that connection. It's just connecting and like just feeling it. It's feeling it. That's what it is, I
Mhm.
think. Because you know how I said
Yeah.
in the beginning, like self-love isn't just like having a beautiful bath with petals and nice salts. I mean, very nice to treat yourself.
It's quite nice.
Very nice. But but true for me, like that true self-love, self non-abandoning self, it all comes under a very similar category, is honoring the truth of who you are. And how can you honor
Yeah.
the truth of who you are if you don't know who you are? How do you get to
Yeah.
know who you are? By being in presence and silence and connecting.
I absolutely resonate with all of that completely.
Mm.
You know, and the one word from what you've just said for me is acceptance.
Yeah,
You know,
beautiful. Yeah.
just acceptance. And again, that can be challenging in itself, can't it? You
Yes.
know,
We've got
we
a lot
won't abandon that acceptance.
yeah, we've got a lot to contend with. I mean, again, like we would not have chose to experience this if we wasn't more than capable. If we do know who we are and we connect to the truth of who we are, we know exactly who we are. And all of this is like a picnic.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, we take life so seriously, but if you do have that spiritual maturity and that connection and you know the truth of who you are, it's kind of like I don't want to discredit it or try to belittle it because it's a beautiful, beautiful experience, but you can see the irony in life.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we talked about like triggering in relationships. Again, if you have that spiritual maturity, you would
Mhm.
thank your partner for that gift. Like you would thank your
Yeah. Yeah.
partner. Thank you for showing me that wound of abandonment. Now I can love
Absolutely.
myself
Absolutely.
even more. Thank
Yeah.
you. You know, honoring, namaste.
Mhm.
I see the light in you. And, you know, it,
Yeah. Yeah. Very
it
true.
comes with that again, that spiritual maturity. And life it is irony, but it when you see it from that perspective, it for me it's more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I think I do a lot of work with archetypes, and one of the archetypes you speak about is the fool.
Yeah,
You know, and the fool is present at the beginning of the journey and at the end.
yeah,
The fool at the beginning is very much ignorant to themselves and the world. You know, they make a laugh and joke out of life and don't take life seriously. So they neglect a huge part of their lives and themselves. So self-abandonment or abandonment on a huge scale. But as the awakened fool is that one that connects with their inner child, that play, that love, that laughter, and that just the joy of life for what it is, you know, instead of neglecting aspects of self. And a small little story, a short little story about last night, because I went to see a client last night, and it was raining, it was pouring, and the weather was terrible. And I'm usually very slow and present and take my time with things. But last night I thought, I've got to get to this client on time. So I was rushing a little bit. And there I was. I went down this hill, this bank, and it was muddy.
oh dear.
And I, and I slipped right up. And I was like, oh my God. But I literally was covered in mud. I got up straight away. The lady I was seeing was like, "Are you all right, Andy?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But I just made a laugh and joke out of it, and I had to see other clients as well afterwards, and it was just funny, And the person I was with said, I would have been really stressed if that was me, and I was like, "Well, it's life.
You're
It's
gonna get
life."
in the mud here and there.
Yeah. And there was me walking around the house, and there was mud all over the place, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm sorry," but it was fun. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's funny you should mention that because on my walk this morning with a friend, um, it was, as I said earlier, it's been snowing here, but as we were walking, the sun came out and the snow was melting. It was quite muddy in parts. We were going across some fields towards this little wood, and I slipped quite a few times and was laughing. And I said to my friend as we looked over into this other field, when the field's been ploughed and it's like really big, sort of like heaps of mud. And I said,
yeah,
do you know what? I said to my friend, do you know what? I would love to just literally jump in that, like just jump in it. And I said, do you remember when you were a kid and like you didn't think twice about getting dirty or like losing your welly in the
yeah,
mud? You just jump in and play in it.
yeah,
That's what I said
yeah,
to my friend this morning. Um, yeah,
yeah.
you know,
I think we miss out on that so much.
yeah,
That childlike play, fun, laughter, but just remember as a kid, you run around in the mud and you get to a puddle and you might fall face first into it, and it's like your mum's like, "What? All
what's
right, we'll go and we get washed up, it's all right."
yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, that's the beauty and that's the joy in life, and we can find joy in anything. Like, again, like for me, I'm finding everything is ceremonial. So even like washing pots, like you can be very mindful washing the pots, like and
Yeah,
see it's fun rather than I've got to wash the pots and rushing about here, there, and everywhere. It's just like slow down, be present with it, and just enjoy
yeah.
it.
It's funny you said that because I know we had this conversation before, but I I used to listen to Wayne Dyer all the time. I used to love Wayne Dyer stuff,
Yeah.
and you just remember, washing up and just saying, let's just be mindful. Look outside, you see the garden, or you see the sunset, or whatever it is, and you're like, "There's me washing the pots." Oh, how was your evening? I was washing the pots, and it was lovely. So, anyway,
No,
anyway,
it's
but
true though. It's true. It's we can, yeah, we're always going to have the ups and downs in life, the highs and the lows. It's just how we perceive them.
and finally, I spoke to a friend last night about. I think a lot of people have gone through a lot of deep stuff in the last month or
Yes.
the last couple of weeks and
Yeah.
end of last year. And they've had a deep purge, really, really deep purge. And I think this is just another level of awakening for so many of us, and embracing divine love or our purpose more. And I was just chatting to a friend last night, and I said, we were saying things will be all right, everything will be fine. We'll work through it, we'll process it, this, that, and the other. Until our next tragedy, you know.
Yeah.
And we will go through these experiences, and it's fine. It's always how we respond, isn't it?
Yeah. It is the richness of life, really. But yeah, I mean, personally, it's quite a controversial subject for many people, but for me, with the lockdown and everything, I felt it was a massive planetary consciousness reacting, and and creating a big, massive purge for all of us to go deeper within our own individual. Obviously, the planet is coping with all sorts of planetary mass conscious, and that's why it's reacting as it is with all the different things that are going on, which is crazy in areas with, with earthquakes and all sorts going on. But it was also about us having an opportunity to, because obviously it brought up fears, masses of fear for masses of people.
Yeah.
And then with that brought everything else up, because it's all connected to the childhood wounds. So for me, it was an opportunity, a calling, an opportunity. And again, I see that as a beautiful gift. And, many people will probably not like me saying that, but the way that I choose to perceive it is, it was a beautiful opportunity.
Definitely, especially with the time.
Yeah.
The time we had to find ourselves.
Yes.
Slow down. So we had some lockdowns. In those lockdowns, take yourself some time, find yourself, slow down.
Yeah.
But I think so many of us also, they missed out on that opportunity to see the beauty in it, of them really connecting. And I think it goes back to, again, like the busyness of life. We're so connected with the busyness of everything that when we slow down, we feel like we need to fill it with something else that will keep us busy.
Yeah. We're too busy doing when we are human beings. We need to be. We need to be being. It's all in the name. We are beings, not doers,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So I was going to ask you, what would you say the key points for someone watching this to assist them with healing a wound of abandonment?
Yeah. Again, I think the key to most things is silencing. Learn to meditate. If you've never done any meditating before, listen to some guided meditation just to get you into some practice to help to still the mind. Eventually you'll get to a place where you don't need the guided meditation. Some nice background music is nice, but you'll get to a stage where you don't even need that. Crucially, and I feel really passionate about sharing this, is to take the time to be in silence, because the answers are all in that silence. And things that come up before that silence, anything that comes up that makes you feel uncomfortable, is coming up to be healed. So have a journal next to you, jot down these things that are coming up. But that's like my key thing for a starter point. And then, of course, there are people like yourself, Andy, and me who can support people with healing in lots of different modalities, lots of different ways. And that is important for some people who have not yet got that spiritual maturity. We do need, I need, you need, we all need masters, other people to help and guide us. So there's no shame in that, but a good place to start is to go into that silence place, and whatever is coming up before that silence, note that down, because they're your gifts of healing, for absolute sure.
Yeah,
and connect to nature. Nature is a beautiful, it's our battery for our energy. I always talk about grounding, so walking barefoot on the earth, on the grass, getting yourself out into the woods or the forest, or even near the sea, wherever, and just spending that time in nature just to re-energize.
Absolutely.
I mean, healing is holistic, so I mean, we haven't got time probably in this video, but I look at the whole picture. So it's about your nutrition, spiritual health, physical health, everything, sleep, everything, all the categories in life. It has to be looked at.
Yeah, it's all us whole as a being,
Yeah.
Well, thank you for chatting to me today. It's been a lovely conversation. Where can we find out more about yourself and your work as well?
Yeah, I'll give you my links, Andy, and maybe you can put them in the video link. That'd be easier.
They'll be in the comments section below, or in the description anyway.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. And I'm sure we'll have some more discussions on some other subjects as well. So thank you again for watching. Take care, everyone, and notice just allow your wounds to appear, But thank you. Much love.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.